Hi everyone. Feel free to sit or stand, however you prefer. Thank you so much for coming tonight to our, I think this is number 8 of Object Lesson, which is a monthly series that the Center for Art in Wood hosts that facilitates greater community engagement with our collection. As you may know, the Center for Art in Wood has a growing collection of some 1,200 objects, most of which are contemporary works in the material of wood, and they encompass objects of wood turning, studio furniture, sculpture, video, installation, works on paper, and sculpture, and also works of adornment. And the collection is growing. Most of it is on view here at all times in the study storage that you see here on the mezzanine level of the center. We also have a number of works that are in traveling exhibitions across the country, and then some of our longer term loan with other institutions that we have partnership with. So please feel free to come back and visit us at any time, and anytime the center is open, the collection is open for your use and your study, and we're always here to answer any questions you might have about that. So we're just really thrilled anytime we can work and engage with that collection, because it's one of our, it's an anchor to the center and its mission, and it's also one of our treasuries. So, Object Lesson speaker today is James Maurelle. James is an interdisciplinary artist. He also works in sculpture, video, photography, and sound art. His work investigates the correlation formed between labor and creativity. At the center of this byway is the spirit of his work. Constructing objects and moving images are not unlike creating music compositions. The accompaniment, for example, tools and materials, are a call and response to dexterity. The rubric to complete any composition is to know one's instruments and tools. The creative process is based on this reciprocal understanding. Jazz is the primer which propels the work. The tone and feel of every composition is in direct association with the culture. Every object James composes is a physical versioning of an historic recording of happening. Every tool used is an augmented scale referencing an industrial progression. That's great. Okay. The materials, such as wood, metal, plastic, and film, are the staff paper, and every committed strike upon these materials forms a note or a chord. The fluidity connecting mind, hand, and tools are based on the augmented triad, which is the cornerstone of James's work ethic. The main objective is to continue creating full-bodied compositions as long as the staff paper flows. He will inscribe upon it. James is an accomplished artist whose work is shown in solo and group exhibitions in New York, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Austin, Philadelphia, Cincinnati, and San Francisco. He is a recipient of the Skowhegan School of Painting and Sculpture Fellowship, has completed a number of residencies, and also is a curator and a lecturer at Penn as well as Lincoln University. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to James. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yes, thank you. Man, that sounded really great, like her reading it. I'm like, wow, who's she talking about? Object lessons. So what's going to happen is I'm going to run it. I'm going to read a little bit, some illustration if you want to come and like see and like deal with the object, and then I'm going to do a reading, and then end with some poetry, right? And then that'll be it. Is that cool? Yeah? Yeah? Okay. Let me put on my old man glasses. Lin Yamaguchi. So, I'm going to move around a lot. So some research that I did was just from her website. It's kind of hard to find, a few things on her. I didn't want to like get too much into researching every single thing about her, because how I was exposed to her work was just me discovering it in the glass cases. I talked to Jennifer, and she said, well, who are you, what are you thinking about, or who are you looking for? And I said, I want to present a woman artist. and I just wanted to wash over me to see what would actually like happen. And this piece stuck out, you know, to me. And from my notes, from her artist statement, she quoted a writer. I'll get into it, but this is one quote. It seems like the essential of like her work. Perfection is finally attained, not when there is no longer anything to add, but when there is no longer anything to take away. And this is from the book by Antoine, excuse me for my accent, like Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. And I don't know if anyone knows the Little Prince. Okay, good. Wind, Sand, and Stars. So immediately when I saw this online, I said, well, I have to read the book. So I read the book, and I have one passage that I'm going to read from the book, but also was cross-referencing, and I also found another book, Chika Sagawa, and she's an avant-garde poetry writer from Japan, from Hokkaido. And the connection with Japan and Fuchika and Lin Yamaguchi is this duality that I saw in her work. The in-between of the old country and Nihon and America, and seeing that play out in her work. Because it's this push and pull of, there's turning, but yet there's like this conversation that's kind of hidden, right? But it's something like to discover. And there's so many things that I discovered with the work that I feel that it was really interesting, and I'm going to go through them. I'm going to put on the glove. Okay. So the folks are up. So when I first touched the work, I wanted to see where my hand would, besides touching it, but as a vessel. Right. So vessels, it's this duality of like life and death, water, dryness, oil, or like an empty space. Right. So the first thing I started thinking, well, I'm going to go into this space, put my hand in this space. So it's kind of like I leapt into the abyss, right? Into this, what some Japanese, mu, this nothingness, right? And so that's how I entered the work, and I put my fist in and see what would happen. If it would get caught, or if it entered the space, or become the space. Now, the thing is with the piece and wood, it's because of this. So, the name of the piece is Learning to Cope, Per Incognito Under a Mantle of Cherry. Cherry tree, sakura, which is big in Japan. So, pear, cherry bark, wax string. Put this back on. So, this is where I just, if you see around these plates of cherry bark, these plates are neither fully Japanese or fully English so far as like mythology and luck. There are 12 pieces, not 13 and not 14. So 4 or anything, 14 or 24 in Japan is considered bad luck. So I immediately thought, okay, well, I started counting. But also, there's a seam here. In the picture online, this was turned around, covering the seam, but it's on its side. So this gesture of the twine, or this girdedness, right, or protection, this is what I saw. Samurai armor. So the in-between of the chest plate and the legs. The chest plate is do. The legs, the covering of the legs is haidate. But the in-between here, the skirt is kasazuri. And so the kasazuri, it protects I guess some would say the chi, or the center of the body, or the loin, right? And that's the gesture from here is what I saw. Now, it's not tied on the bottom, it's just on the top. So it could be removed, right? So it isn't stable. So it's this kind of push and pull. I'm going to read from Wind, Sand, and Stars. So just a little background. I'm Antoine Zuperé. World War II, you fight male person via airplane. He crashes in Libya, so he's like stranded, dealing with like life, mortality, survival. And this is a passage that stuck out to me. And yet I found that I was filled with dreams. They came to me soundlessly like the waters of a spring. And at first I did not understand the gentle joy that was flowing into me. There was neither voice nor image, but an awareness of a presence, a friendship that was very close and already half known by intuition. Then I understood, closed eyes. I surrendered myself to the enchantment of my memory. Finding this passage outside of the main quote that she used, I was trying to really understand, well, what was this coming from? Where is this coming from? And once again, it was a duality. Her being in Kyoto, but spending time in Arizona and in the desert. So I'm thinking, well, is this before how she entered or started, she read this book before she moved, or was it during, right? But just reading it and so many things, trying to understand. I honestly believe, well, an artist can show work, and we kind of get maybe like an understanding, well, I mean, maybe or maybe not, who they are, right? But the work doesn't explain every single thing, but you delve into this place of like intimacy through the written word, right? Writing and reading and engaging in this call and response, and how we interact with each other, right? This on and off, this push up, this conversation, right? So I read this, and that was a passage that stuck out, where I was trying to investigate, well, what could have been the primer to possibly, this could have been latent or later on in life. When did this manifest? What sparked this object coming to be? But it wasn't fully this, because her being first generation and growing up with, Japanese, and that tug, that back and forth. We can see it so far as the turning and the smoothness, but it's also these jagged, like, gestures, the intention of the gestures, right? But also the twine, the waxing twine, but also the color. Red is really important in Japanese culture, from the flag, from showing energy, right? And passion, but also death and letting out. So tying up this, but just imagine if the seam was here. So this gesture of letting the materials speak for themselves, right? Or just, in like slang or like hip hop, like letting it rock, right? So it made me think, well, what is, yes, it's a vessel, but what is it actually for? What is it holding, right? I came up with memories, right? Memories that can escape, or memories that you want to gird, to hold in, right? So dealing with that process. So, okay, well, is it negative memories? Are there memories of healing? Is it in transition? It's going back and forth, right? So I was thinking, well, is this self or this relationships? Does it have to do with her identity, right? Then it led me to, well, it's really poetic, but I need to find the words or some type of connection that can reveal this like poetry in her work and this delicateness in her work that I really wanted to pay attention to. I knew that it was something that I fully don't understand. I'm still learning from it even being in the presence of it. I saw it one time, but most of the time I've seen it's flat. Okay? But now just being in presence of it, it changes things. Slated, and you can ready to get them. So I'm gonna read this passage. So we're dealing with this identity, home, and memories with Lynn. Okay. This one poem, Illusory of Home. A chief clutches the blue sky. 4 fingerprints are left. Gradually the chicken bleeds. Even here the sun is crushed. Wardens of the sky who come inquiring. I see daylight take off running. An empty White House where no one lives. Long dreams of people encircled this house many times, then wilted like flower petals. Death deliberately clings to my finger, peeling off the shell of night, one layer at a time. This house connects a brilliant road to the distant memory of a distant world. I get some water. Dry mouth when you're lecturing. Okay. Ocean of memory. Hair disheveled, chest splayed out, a mad woman is drifting. A crowd of white words breaks upon the sepulchre ocean, a torn orchidation. White horse, a black horse, storm across over it, frothing. Tree spirits. Through the tunnel in the woods, following the telegraph line that stretches to the foot of the mountain. Once again, the childhood memory comes back to me. The valley is dark and it is cold, a wandering voice. You were right there. Twilight chasing the merchants who crossed the streets of melting snow. A swarm of mosquitoes circles higher and higher under the eaves. Ah, won't you return right away? In the form of joyful cries, depicting the melancholy of a boy's day that shakes the mountains and seeps into the distant sky. All traces of people fade into the distance. Just reading the passages, but having this image of this work burned, this in my mind, and finding these scenes, and how am I going to present this, right? In a way where it's a call and response to what we have, but it's also just really personal, some kind of an intimate moment I'd like to share. This is a rendering of the piece. Is a little bit high. Sorry, my competition isn't really great. Right. But making work or dealing with the creation and with the materials, especially wood, and how the combinations that create the whole. They're pieces that ring to me that are extremely poetic, and they're delicate, but it's also this hidden like restraint that's in the work, right? And that's something where my wife is Japanese, and so I talked to her about this piece, and I told her what I was planning to do. And the first thing she said to me, she said, well, do you respect her work? I said, yes, I do. I respect her work. I mean, yes, I'm committed to this. And she also said, well, because she knows me and how I, dig things, and your intentions, you have to make those intentions known to her before you present, whatever that may mean. So I reached out to her. She lives in San Francisco, and I reached out to her. I sent her an email, but I didn't receive a response. But it's just the point my wife told me. She said, you have to do that out of respect, not just go into, because there is an intimate piece and it's revealing on so many ways that I have to put that out there, at least that it's there to her, right? And I feel good with that. It would have been nice if she would return back, right? Because I definitely want to know her and talk to her. So many questions that I still have for her, but I see it in her work, and it's very beautiful. And I definitely want to thank the center for giving me this opportunity. Jennifer, thank you so much to hear me ramble on about work. Hopefully I've done it some justice, and